vision is incredibly broad, so boiling this down to 15 minutes I think will prove to be about as difficult of a task as developing a vision in the first place. But let's dive into it. So yesterday when I was floating around the vision track, I was hearing a lot of people come in with big, very broad vision ideas, as well as a lot of folks who were talking about really specific measurable goals within that plan. So what were you two hearing from participants around ideas about crafting vision in the first place?
I'll start. One of the things that I heard clearly from multiple participants was the idea of really taking your vision and making sure that you're bringing your community in, that when you're thinking with in a school setting, that is not just something that is crafted at one time and then not taken out to other people. And so how do you really begin to bring others into the vision so that it continues to evolve and become something that's living and breathing and really personal for everyone within your system?
I would definitely echo that. I think that the continuing thought was often we see vision as this immensely lofty kind of beacon on the horizon that we can't ever quite get to, but instead of looking at that as that end goal, instead looking at it through that lens of this is how I need to get to the pieces that we're trying to accomplish today. And so instead of putting off that ideal that is so difficult to get to, how can we actually use our vision to accomplish and ignite and implement where we're headed for at that moment?
What were some of the challenges that you feel like you were hearing a lot of folks are grappling with, either around developing their vision or keeping it top of mind for folks at school throughout the school year and beyond?
I don't know that people phrased it this way, but something that the last speakers just talked about was very clear. People really struggle with making sure that they are attending to that why curriculum that we heard a second ago, and not letting the what and the how get in the way. And the vision really lays in that why space. And so staying true to that and finding the how and the what that allow you to get back to that vision, and making sure the things that you're choosing to do really support the why behind the what and the how of what you're doing.
Agreed. And I think also taking that ownership for the vision yourself. I think that was a continuing idea that was said throughout the afternoon, was definitely it's not a district vision, it's an individual vision. It's that classroom teacher, it's that technology director, it's every single person needs to be able to implement their own why for their own population that they're trying to touch and improve the opportunities for.
Brianna, what could that look like? Like, how does a classroom educator take one of these broad, district level visions and really implement it in their own practice in the classroom?
I think one of the big things that we're seeing is really, again, going back to that why. Like, why are you in education? What's that life that you're trying to touch? And, you know your what, and your what is you're trying to improve education. You can't get to your how unless you know why you're trying to improve it. And so taking that individual student and looking through their lens of, what would make Carlos's life so much better? And what is it that he's not able to understand? And oh my gosh, if we could do this piece, then that would transform this experience for him. Instead of saying, oh, we have these Chromebook carts that we're going to try to do. It's not matching the solution with the opportunity to do that. It's instead reminding that teacher of, this isn't just another initiative that's been laid at your feet. This is how you're going to better that opportunity.
I heard a really good example from someone at the table, and they said that at their school, they had their vision for their school. They did a lot of work with what's your why, what's your personal why of why are you a teacher, why are you whatever your position was in the school, and then they asked every adult in the building, to make a promise and make that promise public. And so they did they created a hashtag, and everybody went public with, what is it that I personally am going to do to fulfill this vision that we have? And so then it really did take it, connect it to your personal why, but then make it actionable. I mean, finding a way for every adult to think about how they make that actionable. And then they said, the kids really got wind of it, the parents got wind of it, and it became, for the kids, how are you going to make it actionable as well? What's your promise? What are you going to do to help reach this vision so that it really it's owned by everyone?
Yeah. And Stephanie, just a minute ago, you were talking about how important it is to bring the community in when either you're designing a vision, certainly when you're carrying out that vision. What are some of the ways that you're hearing folks here are doing that within their own communities?
I think one of the things we heard is that's a struggle and it's a challenge. But there are a lot of creative things going on. One of the stories that I heard yesterday is a community that the idea of flipping. We heard about empathy walks, right? Like so that an adult would shadow a student for the day to come up with ideas. Taking the kids out to do an empathy walk in the community. What are the needs of our community? And then really engaging with your community so that you can begin to translate, here's our vision, and how does our vision connect not only within our building, but how does that connect to our community and to the needs that our community has? And so trying to find those bridges to really bring the outside world in, but at the same time go out into the world is really important.
I think with that, it's also helping you only know what you know. And oftentimes the adults in our community, if they weren't if they're not comfortable with the technology opportunities and with the learning environments the way that they are, then you get that pushback of, well, why do it was good enough for me. School was great the way that it was for me. So one of the things that we've been seeing a lot too is partnering with those communities to where maybe you're having education nights for your parents to come in. I've seen situations where Google Apps goes into a school district, and then all of a sudden that conversation that happens where your fifth grader comes home with their homework and you can't remember how to do that homework, how that makes you feel as a parent. They were seeing that same thing over technology applications. And so bringing the parents in and helping them be able to help support their students at home really showcased why the teachers were providing this homework opportunity and what it looked like and how it really changed it, so that then the parents felt that support as well, to be able to kind of partner with their student and say, oh, this is why it's important. These are the things that we're doing. That they saw the connection back into their own community, into their own workplace, those kind of things.
Yeah. So as important as it is to create a vision, I think we all know that sometimes things get in the way, visions can fade. So what were some of the things that you're hearing around how to keep that vision alive, keep faculty and teachers aware of this even after turnover? Just how do you keep it going on?
So I think that one of the big things that came up in several conversations was that exact point of when you have new staff come in, what does that look like? How do you move beyond just a vision statement to the culture of your, having that vision be the basis of your culture? And it's not a statement, rather it's an embodiment of what it is that you really want to achieve. And again, great opportunity for that professional learning conversation of how do we continually bring this to the forefront. We're not just saying it and putting it on a website and then walking away from it. All of the effort that goes into crafting that vision from a district level, with the stakeholder conversations and all of that, that's all well and good. But once it's established, how do we keep that conversation going? How do we make sure that every new hire understands it? How are we establishing that feel? You go into corporations and many of our corporations now very much are like, this is what it's like to be a Google employee. This is what it's like to be, at Apple. You feel that culture that's in there. How are we doing that for our teachers? I'll give a shout out to Joe Sanfilippo in Falls Creek. He does an amazing job. Like, he basically treats it like a signing, where as soon as they get a new staff, he like brings in students and they're like, hey, guess what? You're going to be our teacher. We picked you. And, gives them a t-shirt, and they get super jazzed about it. And it's like, they get to call their parents. They get to tell them like, I got this job. I get to be this person who's going to change the life for these kids. And what does that explain about your culture right there for that? And if you're not the one time that you are the most excited about life is the day that you get the call that you got the job. And if we're not celebrating that and like getting really geeked up about that for those teachers and having that opportunity to push that culture, then we're kind of missing that chance to share the vision.
Yeah, and I feel like I've said this a little bit, but I think for me, the way that you continue to come back to that is by really making sure that it's personal for people. If it is truly just a statement on the wall, that's not going to move the needle. And so how do you make sure that your vision is connected to actions that are taken every day? And for me, that's really making sure that it's personal for people.
During the Hour of Story earlier this week, I know we were talking a lot about these aha moments. And I was curious if there was a particular moment for either of you two in the last 2 days, especially in the vision track, where the light bulb really turned on around any particular topic or example that someone brought up.
Yeah, so kind of what I just said, the make it personal and make it public. I think that was my biggest takeaway from this, is we know the importance of why, but if we're going to make it stick, we've got to make it personal and we've got to make it public, and for everyone within the system. So not only the adults, but thinking about the kids too.
Yeah, when you say make it public, like what does that look like? What does that mean? Public to who?
Yeah, so I mean, transparent and open. I would say, the example I gave of the school that created a hashtag and everyone was putting it out there, making it public that way. I would say that you could do things. We've seen schools, people teachers posting it outside their doors. I think you could use the power of social media if your school has a page to highlight what are these things and revisit them throughout. So I think just finding different ways to reinforce that. I think that goes to not letting that vision fade, because if that becomes then an ongoing highlighting people within our organization and how they've made our vision personal to themselves and continuing to make that public, not just a one and done, I think that helps people revisit their vision and think about, what am I doing? What was my promise that I made about reaching this vision, and what am I doing to make that happen?
I imagine that adds a bit of accountability component to it too, if you're telling folks in the public, in the community, this is what we're going after.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, cool.
I would say that it's not a vision for the future, that you can't have your future without your past and without your present. And if you go to the optometrist and you get your prescription for your glasses, you spend some time, right? It's been created specifically for you in order for you to be able to see the things that you couldn't see before. You go out into the lobby area and you pick out the frames for your face. But if and it's perfect for me, but if I were to hand you my glasses, you wouldn't be able to see anything at all. Doesn't mean that it's not a great vision. It's a great vision for me. It's not a great vision for you. And so how do we look through that prescription at the things that are right in front of us to impact the change that are happening right there? I think so often, again, we make that lofty thing, but we forget that we put the glasses on so that we could take the steps to get to where we wanted to see, not to just see it.
Great. Well, we could talk about this probably all day again, but thank you both so much for sharing this. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.